welcome back to the Festival of Politics. I'm Minyasha and I'll be one of your co-hosts for today. It's day 2. Care to tell us more, Tom?
Of course, Minyasha. So, welcome to our special climate-themed show. The SYFF Festival of Politics team is in partnership with the Energy Savings Trust. They're working to address the climate emergency. With that in mind, we'll pop by the Climate Cafe, but first I'll hand you back to Minyasha.
So I had the pleasure of interviewing Clive Myrie. For those of you who may not know who he is, he's a British journalist, news reporter and presenter for the BBC. You may have seen him presenting Mastermind or reporting live from war zones. Well, instead of him being the interviewer, he was the interviewee, and here's what we got up to. Hi. Thank you so much for joining us, Clive.
It's a pleasure to be here.
So I know you originally studied law. What kind of made you want to branch into journalism, a journalistic career?
I'd actually always wanted to be a journalist, growing up in Lancashire. But my parents are from the Windrush generation. They came to the UK in the 1960s, and they didn't travel all that way from the beautiful, gorgeous Caribbean island and its sandy beaches and palm trees and wonderful weather to cold, rainy Lancashire for their son to grow up to be a bum. They wanted a lawyer or a doctor or an accountant or a dentist, a proper job. They didn't want a journalist. So, but I'd always wanted to tell stories. So to please them, I studied law at university. But in the back of my mind, I always wanted to be a reporter. But I graduated, got my degree, and I applied to the Middle Temple to become a barrister. And I got a place, but I applied to the BBC at the same time. And luckily for me, but not for my family, the BBC accepted me. And my parents have only forgiven me in the last 25 years when I started presenting Mastermind. That was a joke. But they were unhappy. Work. Nothing is given to you on a plate in this life. Nothing. And it shouldn't be. It shouldn't be. You've got to prove that you can do it. And, you know, I mean, I remember my first attachment in local radio. I was on a BBC training scheme. We were sent on 3 different attachments around the country to different local radio stations. And I was sent to Radio Bristol. And I fell in love with the city, fell in love with the people, loved it. And I wanted to stay. I wanted to leave the course and just stay. And the team in London said, no, you've got to finish the full year of the course, then you can go. But I remember trying to put together radio packages for the breakfast program because I knew everybody listened to the breakfast show. Everybody. Wherever you are in the world, you listen to the local breakfast show. And they did that in the West Country. So I knew everyone would listen to me if I was on it. So I had to make sure everything I did was really good. I'd be getting in at 8, do the late shift. I'd finish at about 3-4 o'clock in the morning with the breakfast show presenter turning up at 5 because I was so focused on making this package blended with sounds and effects and the story of whatever it was, making it pristine. I worked my bits off. You've got to work. And no one is going to give you a job if you do not show that sense that you're committed to the project, committed to the story, committed to the job. Work. That is the most important thing. And if you work and you can do the job, it would be an idiot who didn't pick you to give you the job, wouldn't it? Wouldn't it?
Yeah.
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 So if you can do it, you're going to get the job. But make sure you can do it. So work. And that is the most important lesson I can give any young person trying to get into journalism.
So can you kind of see the climate difference between when you first started reporting and when you're reporting currently? Can you see the difference in the impact that climate change has had on these countries?
What I have seen is the devastating effects on climate as a result of climate change on certain populations. Whether this is in Central America, people having to move further north to get work because they can't work the land with their animals anymore because it's parched. So you get a hell of a lot more migration into America as a result. That's the result of climate change. The small boats issue that we have in the UK. You know, a lot of people are moving up from sub-Saharan Africa because it's difficult for them to continue to make the kind of living that they were making because the land is parched. Climate change has made things really, really difficult.
Well, thank you so much for your time, Clive. It's been great interviewing you.
Pleasure.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Wow, Manasa, that was great. How did you find that?
Do you know, I was like so nervous. Before we started filming, when he walked in, I was literally shaking like a leaf. Like, I've never really, like, I get to interview people all the time, but you know, someone so big, especially someone so like big in broadcasting, it was crazy. It was a great experience, but I will say I was so nervous. But once we sat down, Clive's actually really nice. Like, he's really lovely. And he just felt like I was, like, not, I wouldn't say talking to a pal, but like he was just made me feel comfortable, and like I feel like my confidence built over time, and then I was able to get the kind of interview that I really wanted to get with him, so it was great.
I mean, I can tell you're really natural at that.
Thank you.
Also, he gave you some very sound advice. Has that made you more optimistic and excited for chasing journalism?
Well, the advice he gave young journalists was to work, and it's like pretty obvious. You have to work. There was me working, do you know what I mean, interviewing him. So I will say the advice he gave was very obvious, but he's right. You kind of have to take every single opportunity that falls into your lap, even if it's something small, like writing for your uni newspaper. You need to take it because you never know where it's going to take you. And that's why it's really important to also try and like build a social media presence and stuff like that, because the world of journalism is changing. You kind of need to evolve with it. And his advice was like really good. You just have to work. Yeah,
and what was going through your head at the time, or even before the show? Were you nervous? Were you going, oh my God, that's Clive Myrie?
Yeah, do you know what I mean? It's Clive Myrie. It is so nerve-wracking, like, especially because we are just like young journalists trying to get into the field. It's always going to be scary, but someone so famous, you know, he's a household name, do you know what I mean? Like somebody so big, willing to take the time out and sit with me and just like I asked him questions, he was more than willing to answer them. Very, very willing to tell his like story in his life. You know, I actually got to ask him, because he always talks about not wanting to be seen as like the black journalist. I got to ask him sort of how he navigates race and stuff like that, which was obviously quite important for me. So it was really nice to kind of have somebody like give me advice, somebody that's already there, somebody that's already established as like a big name in the world of journalism, give me advice. So it was really, really good.
Yeah, he was very open and honest, wasn't he? Yeah,
he was great. Like he just was willing to talk. Do you know what I mean? Even the climate question I asked him, he had a lot to say about that. He was just it was great to also sit there and ask him about the climate, especially considering he has been in the industry for so long. He'll have seen firsthand how it's changed from when he first started to now, and it was great to kind of have him talk about the stuff that he's seen.
Yeah, fantastic. Now, here's Emily, who spoke to Jill Belch and David Lintott about environmental justice and the law.
The Festival of Politics Climate Day is taking place today, and there's no better way to handle this topic than by talking about how the law can help enforce a cleaner, safer environment. This was the core theme of the Environmental Justice panel I attended today, where speakers from across different fields came together to highlight the importance of the law in protecting Scotland's nature. I first spoke to Jill Belch, a professor of vascular medicine at the University of Dundee, about how we can make the government and local council work together on issues such as air pollution.
Now, one of the things that was really good for air quality is that they said if you can't enforce it, you're going to get a low emission zone, a LEZ, an LEZ. And the councils that didn't enforce it got the LEZs. And I have to say, they have already dropped the air pollution tremendously. So what we really need to do is bridge the gap between the government and local authorities implementing what the government wants. And I think there is still a very huge gap. Personally, I think the councils are possibly too political. So we have maybe an SNP government, but a lot of the councils are of a different colour, and they therefore aren't as keen to enforce these laws. So we need to get a better connection between the government and our local authorities to actually enforce some of the good laws that we have.
Campaigners and experts with a focus on protecting the environment have not only struggled to bridge this gap between political groups, but have also had issues with getting the media to report on the problems they are facing, which plays a critical part in raising awareness and building funds up. David Lintott is a barrister and the head of strategy at Restore Nature Limited.
But these wider issues of Scottish forestry, they're not really being picked up and reported on. As so many things in terms of our environment and biodiversity issues don't seem to be being picked on. And I am obviously friends with Dave Goulson, who's one of our members of Restore Nature. He's our head of conservation. And you know, he told me that there were 100,000 people down in London last year on Earth Day protesting about trying to do something to save our environment. Not one paper picked up on that story, that there were 100,000 people on the streets of London. I think, well, why is that? I think there's some truth in the fact that there is a narrative that's pushed in our papers, and they don't necessarily publish what is most newsworthy. They're publishing for other reasons. So I think that's a fair point.
Very interesting talk.
It was a very interesting talk. Today's been a really big day for climate in the Festival of Politics. I mean, we had the Climate Cafe. This whole festival has had, you know, thoughts of climate change integrated through it. It's really important. I know for me and like most young people, the climate is something that we're really, really big on. You know, we're going to be around to see the effects. You can already see the effects of it now, and it needs to be taken seriously.
Yeah, and it's good to hear about some of the legislation around it as well.
Yeah.
Do you think they're doing enough with the governments, even if it's not Scottish, just general governments?
I think they'd like to think they're doing enough. I mean, we get all these COPs and stuff like that and all this legislation put through, but it's, oh gosh, it's all talk, not enough action. You know what I mean? But what do you think?
You know, I'm agreeing with you, because I actually made a film about it, but more on that in a second. It's very much top-down approach, which doesn't always work because there's a lot of talking, not much action, a lot of passing the blame onto other people, no one to take responsibility for it. I think a lot needs to change, and I don't think it is happening enough, or quickly enough, to be honest. But yeah, so that film I was on about, I made it, is about how the rich like to use media and stuff like that to pass the blame onto people who can't really do much big changes in their lifestyle and how to impact the climate. So enjoy. Media campaigns oftentimes emphasise individual responsibility through phrases like do your part, eat less meat, reduce your carbon footprint. Some of these campaigns have been sponsored by fossil fuel companies and luxury brands. One such brand is BP, or Beyond Petroleum. In the early 2000s, they introduced the concept of a carbon footprint. It encouraged individuals to calculate and reduce the emissions that they produce themselves. This subtle reframing made climate change a personal issue and not a systemic one. BP has since made a commitment to reduce its own emission and has removed their carbon footprint calculator, but it's important to see how tactics like this work. Another strategy deployed is greenwashing. That is the practice of making misleading or false claims about the environmental benefits of a product or company. H&M was investigated for this a few years ago in regards to their Conscious collection for false sustainability claims and being purposely deceptive. A class action lawsuit was filed against the company, which ultimately found in the favour of the shopping chain. What the case did show successfully, however, was the restarted conversation around how language can be used and abused to obscure the truth or mislead the public. Excess is a socio-economic problem with a cultural force driving it. Social media glorifies opulence and luxury with very little regard given to the environmental impact. This hedonistic lifestyle and ignorance is deeply ingrained in our society, so much so that excess is normalised, as too is climate apathy. This attitude and lifestyle seeps into many parts of people's everyday lives. Trend chasing, buying cheap items online, food wastage, and this shows no signs of stopping anytime soon. I spoke to Master Sociologist Margaret Mitchell about her opinion on how and why the climate campaigns target individuals rather than systems. Oftentimes, climate change campaigns target individuals rather than focusing on groups or like the systems you mentioned. Is there a theory behind this, maybe a sociological one? And if there is, where does it come from?
In structuration theory, you have pillars of individualisation, which relies upon individual rights and freedoms, self-interest, competition and economic freedom, the rule of law and private property. Those are fundamental to individuation. So what it really means is individuals gaining autonomy, independence, making decisions away from the collective of their society. It can be misused easily by corporates, so especially in like selling strategies. So you get the empowering of self to buy their product, where you actually perhaps become the product and the point of sales. So you get things like, just an example, some shampoos, I won't name it, but their tagline is because you're worth it. So it always centres the you, which is important. Empowering, so buying a product, and I've seen it in different mobiles, different sports, clothing, brands. So like I said, you are the product, and that brings in with it politics of knowledge. So individualisation ends up with the lens of the expert, pseudoscience. So you've got the notion of truth, but whose truth is it? What is it they're wanting to do? In terms of climate change, it's used to manipulate in certain ways, like propaganda in media, propaganda of governments, propaganda of corporate, but props up this notion of responsibility and accountability. It's a culture of blame comes from that as well. So the truth still remains obscure.
Climate change does affect everyone, and it should be a joint effort. But for as long as those with the most do the least, and those with the least get punished the most, it leaves all of us to douse out the flames with a water pistol while they sit back and walk on their tans. We need to make the change, and we need to make it now. Otherwise, our species' last day on Earth, all our hope is that the last one out switches off the light.
So Tom, as an inspiring filmmaker, how was it making your short film?
Very challenging. It wasn't the film I set out to make at first, to be honest. I was going to do one about Scottish War called Trickled Economics, because I thought that was quite a clever title. And then that didn't pan out because no one wanted to speak to me. So I was going to do one about mental health, like Alzheimer and green spaces.
Right, yeah, it's interesting.
It would have been, but no one wanted to talk to me.
Right.
Had to get permission to talk to my mum, which was surreal, because she works for Alzheimer Scotland.
Ah, I see.
But anyway, third time lucky, so I decided on the film you just saw.
Well, it turned out great, and third time is the charm. And so do you think, you speak about greenwashing in your film, do you think that's something people have kind of woken up to more recently?
I do to a certain extent, but I don't think enough people are aware of it. Because I've mentioned H&M obviously as an example, but there's other people like Kim Kardashian who's promoted eco-friendly stuff.
Sure.
Can't remember the picture, I'm sure it's like her with a skillet promoting eco-friendly cooking.
Right.
Which got a plastic bag in the background full of red meat.
Yes, I see the dilemma, yeah.
Yeah.
Right, so yeah, it's still very much a problem then, greenwashing, but maybe sort of becoming more in the mainstream.
Yeah.
Sort of central discussion.
I'd say so, definitely. It's something I don't think is going to go away. It's a PR tactic. It's very hard to change them. So.
Yeah, well, it's obviously cheaper as well, isn't it, to sort of have harmful practices in manufacturing, but you don't want people to know about that, obviously, so we need to find a way of hiding it away.
Yeah, and eco is a good buzzword that will sell products. They're not going to say, oh, this is horrible for the environment. How many fish die to make this sock for you? No, they're not going to say that, are they?
No, I suppose you're right enough. And keeping on the topic of the climate, we were lucky enough earlier on to go along to the Climate Cafe, which is a grassroots initiative that sort of promotes open and inclusive discussion about the climate. You're working here, I guess, alongside your mum and your sister as well, but what made you guys want to start doing this sort of in the first place?
So we realised in our community that not many people were talking about climate. Of course, I was quite young at the time, so I guess I wasn't as involved as I am now, helping with these events. But yeah, we realised in our community that there wasn't much chat about climate, so we wanted to change that, and there was this simple idea.
It's a brilliant idea. It's an incredible thing to be doing, yeah. So there are 14 climate cafes across Scotland at the moment, is there? think so.
I'm not sure
That's
about the
fine.
stats.
That's okay, don't worry. It doesn't, it's absolutely fine.
I know there's a lot.
There is a lot, no, honestly. So what do you think do you know, like, have any plans for the future? What you guys would like to do with it, like, going forward?
Yeah, just, I guess, growing and just trying to keep that idea, keeping the idea alive, and make sure that that people know that climate change is a thing, and just keeping it grassroots so that it's not advertising, big billboards, just word of mouth and grassroots and communities after communities. So just building the network and expanding, really.
So that was honestly such an incredible interview with that wee boy. I was astounded at the confidence and the knowledge that wee boy had on the climate.
Yeah, what a guy. There was a lot of young people there, which is good because that's people need involved. They had the Crieff High School.
Yes,
They made a film. It's satirical, so that's right up my alley.
It was hilarious as well. They had done such a good job of it. It was, yeah, and they were talking about how, you know, the plastic bottle sales in their school and how they had done surveys, and there was, I think, was it 200 to 400 a day that they said?
Yeah, 200 to 400.
And that they were brave enough to report this to the headmaster and say, look, why are we selling these bottles? People could just bring their own. And it's just the bravery of them to start tackling this issue. And how many? There was maybe about 8 of them, I think.
Yeah, I'd say.
It's incredible.
You know, a bit that stuck out to me. I saw plastic bottles, but it's during the film. They're treating it like sort of Green Planet documentary. Here's the elusive plastic
I know.
bottle.
Oh, they were hilarious. And honestly, to be that climate aware at the age of these kids, I mean, I don't think I had that awareness probably that young. And it's probably just shows the changing narrative in society for the climate as a whole.
It's very inspiring.
It's
I definitely didn't have that point of view when I was younger.
No, it's so encouraging, and you know, it kind of refills your confidence, doesn't it, that you know that there are going to be people in the younger generation as well as our generation that are going to fight for the climate against odds that are, you know, they're quite stacked against us still. And sort of the thing is, it shouldn't have been left to them, but they've risen to this challenge, and it's just incredible to see.
It absolutely is.
Wonderful.
Plus, they've got many initiatives all over the country, so if you're interested, to look them up.
Yeah, 100%.
So, next, Minyasha looks at a climate event she attended.
Thanks, Tom. So a couple of us got to attend the Water Witnesses event at Edinburgh International Book Festival, Should a River Be Afforded Personhood? And this is what we got up to. Hi, I'm Minyasha, and we're here today at the Edinburgh International Book Festival covering Water Witnesses event, Can a River Be Afforded Personhood? Can a river have rights, and what exactly does that mean? Well, that's what we're here to find out.
Yeah, so my name is Lexi Parfit. I'm Director of Public and Political Engagement at Water Witness International. Basically, one thing that we're really interested in at Water Witness is going beyond, you know, not just building a borehole or building taps and toilets, but really understanding actually what is the driving reason why some people don't have access to clean water and decent sanitation.
Around the world, people struggle to gain access to clean water and sanitation, and a new idea to combat this is according rivers rights, like a person.
The whole concept around rivers, water sources having legal rights actually comes from an amazing community of Maori activists in New Zealand who basically pushed for their river to have legal personhood.
I think the question about rivers and whether they should be afforded personhood, I think it's an important question, and I think it has a lot to do with values and the values that we accord nature, and I think it's a discussion that people in different sectors should be having, which is exciting to see, like the people in this room.
The idea of rivers having rights sounds ridiculous. I mean, what would its pronouns be? But at its most simple level, it gives people the legal standing to represent the river in a court of law.
How do we help ensure that when these things are successful, we can share and learn and keep building upon them? So yeah, we're really interested to hear what happens at the book festival event today and learn more ourselves.
And I think the values that we are according nature, do we think that it just has instrumental value? Is nature just out there to serve us as humans, or do we have a more intrinsic value when we look at nature? Like, do we value it just for the sake of it being there?
So that was a really fascinating opportunity that we got to go along to. What did you find out from it?
Yeah, well, you know, the whole thought of a river having rights, it sounds ridiculous at a surface level. I mean, Louise Walsh at the talk, she said that she gets loads of messages on a daily basis asking what a river's pronouns would be. And you know, it's so silly, but at the talk you really got to dig deep into it. So Monica Tintas, she was just so knowledgeable about the whole concept of a river having rights. Definitely. And it's not just about a river in some cultures, it isn't just a river. It's, you know, part of it's part of their family. It gives them food, it gives them water, it gives them life. So it's not about giving this river this sort of like right. It's about giving the river the opportunity to have people show up for it in court, to show up and give it standing, to give people the ability to campaign when corporations are just dumping whatever into the river, when they're changing the lay of the land. It's about giving people the opportunity to say, no, this is wrong, we're going to take you to court.
It's so important.
It's so important. And you know what, it was just such a great event. Coming up, we have Caitlin's film on water scarcity in the Northeast.
It's midsummer here in the northeast of Scotland. Ordinarily, the rivers surrounding Aberdeenshire would be sustained by the classic downpours that Scotland is known for. But instead, after months of hot weather and dry spells, these rivers are now under a moderate water scarcity alert. How could this be happening in a place infamous for being cold and wet? Well, the answer lies in the changing climate. In May, the Scottish Environment Protection Agency warned that all of Scotland faced some level of water scarcity. Here in Aberdeenshire, the River Dee and the River Don dropped to the lowest spring flows that we've seen in decades. Researchers here at the Hutton Institute have found that we can see changes to our weather happening month by month. This graph shows how rainfall patterns have changed throughout the year, with April being the only month showing little change. At the same time, the temperature is rising more rapidly than scientists anticipated. We have already seen temperatures rise by 1 degree since the 1960s. Despite an average increase in rainfall in June and July, rising temperatures in the spring and summer seasons mean the soil can become both warmer and drier earlier in the year, which reduces its ability to absorb the rainfall effectively. It is this increased variability in the weather throughout the seasons that the Hutton Institute says is driving the deluge and drought pattern that we now see unfolding throughout the year. This year brought the second hottest spring in the last century, paired with 11 consecutive months of below average levels of rainfall. It is little wonder our rivers are under such stress. But this stress doesn't just impact nature. The Northeast has had 11 months of below average rainfall. What do you think are the knock-on effects for sort of industry and community in the area?
So for places like the River Dee side, you have a knock-on impact to fishing. So there's a large tourism sector based on fly fishing in the area. And you can see that with the salmon runs in all rivers across Scotland. Salmon is obviously struggling right now due to a mix of climate change, damming, etc. When you add on water scarcity onto that as well, any community that's reliant on salmon fishing is going to suffer.
So do you think the public and the policymakers sort of realise how vulnerable we are to drought situations in Scotland?
No, I think there's a big ignorance. I think a lot of people think that because we're a rainy country traditionally, that climate change isn't going to have an impact on our waters. But you see that we have with extreme weather, we're seeing drought-like conditions in the east of Scotland, and we're seeing more flooding at the same time in the east of Scotland. So even just recently, we saw flooding near Dundee, hailstones, rain, southern Aberdeenshire, yet we see drought-like conditions in North Aberdeenshire, Aberdeen. So people aren't seeing these extreme variances because they're so used to seeing rain all the time, and Scotland is well known for being a raining country, so people are ignorant to the challenges that climate change poses to our water resources.
The Hutton Institute's climate report, it shows a clear trend in warming in the sort of the northeast area. How do you think this will change the way that we manage our rivers in the future?
Well, I think we're going to need an all-basin approach to river management. So we need to reforest our hills to make sure that we don't have soil erosion because of flash flooding, etc. So we actually build some resilience in through nature-based solutions.
What measures do you think the government need to take in the future to prevent these water scarcity events? see for warnings that they may be in the long term if these trends continue?
Well, I think there's a couple of things we can do. We can do that all basin approach, like I said before, but we also probably need to create more reservoirs for fresh water to store more of that for human use as well as for nature. So I think that's one of the most obvious things we can do. Some of our reservoirs were created in, decades ago, and we need to actually invest in more infrastructure and reservoir infrastructure, and that's a very simple thing that the government could do, but it does require money and political will. And you also have to be mindful of where you actually place any of these infrastructure projects. The most obvious thing, though, is tackling climate crisis. I know we're a tiny area of the world, but we can lead the way in some of these renewable technologies, but also in showing how nature-based solutions can be used to ensure that water scarcity is less of an issue.
But while awareness might still be low, change is already happening. In Aberdeen, groups like the River Dee Trust and Aberdeen Climate Action are restoring rivers, planting trees, and helping communities understand what's at stake. The Scottish Environment Protection Agency, alongside the Scottish Government, continue to monitor river levels closely, working to protect communities and wildlife as our climate changes. The challenges are real, but so are the people working tirelessly to protect our waters and our environment. The rivers of Aberdeenshire will keep flowing, and with our support, we can help them to thrive.
What an amazing film and a great way to round off day 2 of the Festival of Politics. Thank you so much for joining us.
Join us tomorrow for our third and final show. But for now, it's goodbye from me.
And goodbye from me. See ya.
See ya.